Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Brooklyn, New York. This is our Wisdom of the Sages daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to our show. This is the show, if you're new to this is our show where we study the Srimad-Bhagavatam, one of the ancient books of yoga philosophy. A lot of books out there on yoga, mystical books, books about achieving higher planets when you leave your body, books about reincarnation, books about becoming one with God. This book highlights Bhakti Yoga, which sort of like, I was explaining how to, I met an online friend. I'm meeting so many people online. You wouldn't understand how insane my phone is ever since that Joe Rogan interview. I cannot keep up with it.
I had to steal it from you yesterday.
You have to steal it from me. It's like, I can't, I don't want to blow people off. And I'm getting like very serious like inquiries from people about their spiritual life and things resonated with me and please help me, or I'm going through some struggle, or like I've always wanted to understand this. And so it's like you want to reach out, but you can't help anybody. So I was hanging out with Kaustubha yesterday in New York City, and he confiscated my phone.
Had to do it.
You got to stop looking at your phone. It's like I can't help it. I'm going to lose my mind. I went to the Thursday night Kirtan in Brooklyn. I mean, at the Bhakti Center, and I tell you, Kaustubha.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So I went with this one guy, Jeffrey Kilstein, he has a podcast, and he's one of those crazy arrangements. He lives in Tucson. I'm going to Tucson. He wants to interview me, but I'm in New York City. He goes, well, I'm in New York City, and I'm going back to Tucson. So it's just a weird coincidence. And he does jujitsu. So we had this, we just went out to dinner right before the Kirtan. And he's like, I'm in a place where I'm interested in spiritual things. And I said, well, there's a spiritual thing right down the road. He's like, what is it? I didn't want to tell him what it was. I didn't want to get into the whole thing about what Kirtan is. We just sort of got to know each other because we had a lot of things in common. And I tell you, we went in late, and Kaustubha, I'm just telling everybody else, Kaustubha had this little seat for us up front because we came in a little late. And when we both sat down, and I barely know him from Adam, I tell you, I almost broke into tears. It was so, and he did too. We were like, looked at each other like in shock about how incredible this Kirtan. It's what everybody in the world. I looked at him and I said, there's something about this thing that just brings the whole world together.
Yeah.
He looks at me and goes, this is what the whole world needs. And we both were just like, almost like awestruck. I can't even just put it in words. And I thought to myself, yeah, this is one of those kirtans that, there's these 5 potent items in Bhakti. Matter of fact, we should share them right now.
Yeah.
One of them is kirtan, meaning if you do one of these 5 potent items, they can give a person who knows nothing about spiritual life, who's like spiritual life is just like a stone, But if you do one of these 5 potent items of Bhakti, one is hearing a kirtan. It can do something where it makes you feel like you're a liberated soul. Now, it doesn't mean you become a liberated soul, but you get a glimpse, like you watch a movie trailer. It gives you like a trailer of what it looked like, what it must be like to be a Paramahamsa. And Kirtan is one of them. Another one is Srimad-Bhagavatam. So I felt like we were experiencing, like, oh my God, we are experiencing what it's like to be a pure devotee for a moment, just get a taste of it. And what happens is that taste sets a hook, so to speak, in your heart. You know what I mean by setting a hook? Any of you fishermen know there. I was a fisherman when I was like 14. You set a hook, you go fishing, and this is a real horrible thing here. The fish bites the worm, and you set the hook in the mouth. And when the hook is set, the fish can't get out anymore. So in the same way, Krishna, Bhagavan, sets a hook in the heart. You might have been around, but all of a sudden something happens one day. It's a kirtan. This is another one. A Srimad-Bhagavatam class can set a hook. Another one is going in front of the deities and seeing the deities. I also shared with him, I said, do you know the Judeo-Christian concept of God often sometimes gets mixed with a fearful relationship. Like, I have to do this or God's not going to like me, or I have to fear God. He's going to punish me. He goes, look at our conception of God. And I pushed him over so we could have darshan. And there's the deities there are so like beautiful. I was like, this is God. He said, so what do you think? And he's like, it's beautiful. It's like so charming and beautiful. So this seeing the deity is another one of the potent items of bhakti. What else? Oh, residing in a holy place. That's another one. Like when we go to a holy place, like Vrindavan. And what's the other one?
Association of the devotees.
Yeah. Associating. I got to hang out with Kaustubha yesterday.
I got to hang out with you.
My heart too. I was really low in my spiritual life, and then I had associated with Kaustubha yesterday. That set the hook. And so if we get any of these tastes for bhakti, then it gets in us. And then as I move back into my maya, or back into my illusion of the material world, it's sort of like that hook is there, and I remember that feeling. Really nice. And anyway,
I'm still buzzing from last night.
I'm still buzzing.
Like when you walked in, like you said, you're a little late, Achyuta Gopi. And again, let's plug it again. But if you go to, what is it? SoundCloud.
Oh yeah. Concrete Jungle on Sound.
Yeah. Concrete Jungle Kirtan. They have lots of their, they may have kirtans of other people there too, but lots of great recordings of their kirtans. I mean, it was off the charts, right? Here's like, the modern kind of manifestation of music is like you go to a big arena and there's a band there, and it may be that they're great musicians and so on, but generally there's a kind of a disconnection, between the musicians and the audience. I don't know. Maybe that's a little, but it's just, to me, it's not the same as kirtan. When you sit down and you're going back and forth, the audience is just as much part of making music as the
exactly. It's not. I don't want
themselves.
I think, especially because this person, Jamie, that I was with, he's a comedian as well, and so he said that thing I said on Joe Rogan about, can you perform? And Joe was talking about this too. Can you perform as a service to God and not to be God? And I said, It was a very crucial statement that somebody said to me, a teacher said to me at one point in my life. And then he said, well, that was a big moment for him too. And I said, hey, you know that thing about serving God and not trying to be God? Listen to these guys. And he goes, yeah. And that was they were like, I mean, when it comes to a performance, these guys were the most incredible performers.
So skilled.
They could have done it with so much ego. It just wasn't there. And that's the beauty about kirtan when it's done right. And that's why it's important to explain it, because you have people buying harmoniums, learning kirtan. But unless they learn this ingredient, you just become a performer and not a person who's leading group connection, group prayer. That is the difference. And that's what makes genuine kirtan different than just a performance. There was no performance yesterday.
Right.
They were leading and taking us all very, very high in such an incredible mood.
On so many levels last night was, in one sense, last night is something that you can find at the Bhakti Center all the time, but at the same time, it's so special. Like that was last night, all of the kirtan leaders were all from one family, right? It was started by Achyuta Gopi.
Yeah.
Then her nephew was a Vasudeva that was next. Then another nephew of hers, Keshava. And then Achyuta Gopi's brother, Ananta.
Oh my God. Keshava. Who was that kid?
Unbelievable. He was just a little kid a little while ago, and now he's like this.
When I was 17 years old. I looked at Tom. I was like, what were you doing at 17? He was like, I don't know. I want a do-over. Ever feel like that?
Be careful what you want. You may get it.
Again.
No, each one of them, just like you're saying, totally skilled. I mean, in terms of singing, in terms of musicianship, all of them can just take these instruments and switch them over to play. One could lead, play mridanga. The next one, the next minute they could be playing harmonium. They could be singing. Super talented, but like you're saying, it's like, for them, this isn't a performance, and it's not a thing of the ego. For them, doing kirtan is about complete humility. And that when they hit that point, when like the whole thing is, I want to vibrate this name, this transcendental sound with genuine feeling. And my role is just to get everyone else in that same space. And if I'm not in that space, I can't get anyone in that space. And so then when the whole crowd does it together, right?
It's powerful.
Then it's just like, yeah, then you, like you say, you walk in and the energy of that place is just mine. I think there's probably about 200 people there yesterday. Everyone with one voice, everyone together, everyone feeling it. And where you kind of started, like it kind of brings the whole world together.
Now, I don't want to take away anyone's experience, but because I was there late, I was in the back, and then Kaustubha moved me to the front. I will say there was something special about just squishing up there towards the front, because when you're that close too, it affects you in a deep way. You can't really space out that much because you're in it. So I highly encourage people to squish their way up as far as they can go. It was really
but like our problem in this world is that we're all trying to be the center, and so we're all conflicting with each other. And kirtan is where we put Krishna in the center. We put Radha and Krishna in the center. We put God in the center. And when everybody lets go, because the music's powerful, the beat, the melody, then everyone getting it together, it brings the mind, it brings everyone on one state of mind. And then all the conflict, all the false ego that gets in between us somehow just disintegrates. And you can just hit really high levels of consciousness, a whole group of people together. And so I think everyone was feeling that last night. Kirtan's so important because it's said that, some of the early verses that we read in the Bhagavatam, Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhago Padrutaha, that in this age of Kali, our minds are always disturbed, And so therefore meditation is very difficult for us. Sitting alone and meditating is very difficult for us. And there's a verse from the Padma Purana that says for each yuga, for each age, there's a different method of yoga that's effective.
Is laughing yoga?
Laughing yoga was not included. I don't believe that goat yoga was included either.
The method for this age is aerial goat yoga. We hang from ropes with goats.
With goats. No, but it says in the Satya Yuga, it's through meditation, through that kind of Ashtanga yoga meditation where you just have, you renounce the world, you go off to the forest, you sit alone, and you go deep, deep, deep into stilling the mind and meditation. In this age, the vast masses of people are completely hopeless when it comes to that.
How did goat yoga get so big so quick?
That's all we're qualified for.
Has been working on their things for years, like decades. Goat yoga comes out of nowhere. The dark horse.
The dark horse. It arose, the dark coat. And but in this age, it is said that simply through kirtan, that one achieves what they would achieve through meditation in the Satya Yuga. Right? For us, it's a special grace. That in this simple way, let's just sit down together. Let's sing these beautiful names. Let's let go of our egos and let's just chant. And so I was buzzing just from, I want to just give a little plug to the Bhakti Center because I know it's hard to run a center like that. It's hard to put on events after events after events. Bhakti Center puts on about 4,000 events a year.
It's hard to organize anything. I mean, if you're married, it's hard to organize being a couple.
Yeah.
It's hard to organize being a couple with one kid. It's hard. Life is hard to organize anything.
Yeah.
When there's accountability to other egos, what to speak of organizing a community, and hence the reason why we can't stand religion, or we can't stand a church, or we can't stand. So when things do move smoothly, and the product, so to speak, is putting out programs like that, it's very sweet. It's very sweet and wonderful too.
It's rare. And so, and long after we left, there's staff members there that are up cleaning that place and,
with a good attitude.
With a good attitude. Yeah. So I hand it to them to kind of facilitate a community's growth in that way. And like I said, I'm still kind of buzzing from that. It's such a boost, such a boost.
My kids too. I had my kids with me yesterday. And just to have that environment. It's
Yeah.
environment.
Kids can get into it. Old people can get into it. You know, you look at that crowd. You know, one thing I always loved about the Bhakti Center too is like, you know, most organizations, when they want to take like a promotional photograph or something, you know, like, let's make sure every race is represented. Let's make sure that, you know, this is represented. Bhakti Center, you look at that crowd, that's the most diverse crowd you're ever going to find. Just
diverse crowd, you meet it. Yeah.
Naturally just coming together, you know. It's just a beautiful thing. It's like we were talking about social justice and all that. It's just when you get on this level of just like everyone putting their ego aside and getting into these names and getting into kirtan, all that stuff just drops. You actually have social justice on the level of kirtan.
Homogenize us to make us all the same. How about we're all different?
Yeah.
We're going to find that connection on the most subtle level, which is
on the spiritual level. We can all connect. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really nice.
So it was great. I've really loved it. Thanks to everyone at the Bhakti. So Jai Jagannath, a great soul. The first time we saw him as the MC, did a great job. Yeah. Hey, Jai Jagannath's a great Bhagavatam speaker, by the way. People here, they can check him out on Instagram at Urban Sage Deliberates. If you want to get some good inspiration, go to Instagram, Urban Sage Deliberates.
Yeah. And
he always has some interesting thoughts there, you know. So anyway, you know, appreciation to everyone across the board, to Jai Giridhari, who really is the one that pioneered that program, and to all the great souls at the Bhakti Center, all the great people. We saw so many Zoomers and so many others from Wisdom of the Sages were there last night. It was great to see everybody. So anyway.
I saw all the Zoomers in live. It's like they're real people. I saw Aditi. I've only seen, I feel like Aditi is my best friend because I just see her every morning. But the fact is she's a real human.
She is. And she was dancing up a storm last night too.
E-star. What'd you say?
She was dancing up a storm last night too.
Dancing up a storm, yes. Jamuna Jaya in the flesh. Samantha Joe came out of nowhere. Didn't know she was there. And,
Samantha Joe. Yeah, so many were there.
Yeah. Yeah, and also this moving in this world without ego is such a powerful thing. And you can really experience it in the kirtan, in the dancing. I'm gonna keep going with this.
Keep going. We got to talk about kirtan, right? It's just so important, so central.
Dancing of kirtan, because generally, by the way, if you don't know or not, I can't dance. I can't dance. I can tell my body to dance, but it looks always a little forced and awkward. Now, any arena where there is dancing, there's a lot of ego oftentimes in that dancing. Like it's a sexy thing. It's like a checking me out thing. But when you can just dance without ego, and you see people who actually can dance when they're dancing in the kirtan, and the people like myself who can't dance, but it's all done from a place where you're obviously not trying to impress anyone in a kirtan. It just becomes like a joyful expression of the music. It becomes a joyful expression for everybody. And there's you can't describe it. There's something about music and there's something about dancing that are sort of magical in their own right. And when you question with mantra, it's like a whole nother world.
That's kirtan, and that's why it's such a powerful form of yoga, such a powerful form of meditation. Because again, we're weak, but the music and the dancing, it attracts our mind, it focuses our mind. And when you focus it on those names, then you open up, and the power of that name can penetrate the mind.
Well, you know what my favorite thing
the heart.
You know my favorite thing to do, Kaustubha, is when people are sort of like, there's a kirtan going, and there's a bunch of people dancing, and there's some guy on the side going, very nice, very nice. Very nice, clapping. I'm that guy who grabs that person and throws them in the middle.
You're that guy? I'm
that guy and spins them around. And it's something about when you're sort of sitting on the side, appreciating, but not fully dancing. Once someone pushes you in that middle, then they spin you around. There's something that you lose your material mind. That's a powerful place to be. Losing your material, you're just swept up in the movement of the body and the letting go of some inhibition or something.
Yeah. Anyway, check out their kirtans at Concrete Jungle Kirtan, and a lot of we should have eventually people like Genevieve Harrison, Agoravani, You know, you could check out the old kirtans of Indra Das, Aindra, Indra Das.
Yeah,
Just really, really devoted people, really talented, but really devoted. And so their music has such power.
I'm writing Indra Das. So if you're listening to the show for the first time, welcome. We have a whole live Zoom group. Today we got 77 people live.
Nice.
Some people sometimes join us for live like Tom is today. And what else do we have? And we have the people who listen on the podcasts, and it's growing bigger. We call them the others. We never meet them. They just wander around New York City. I met a lot of others yesterday at the Bhakti Center.
Yeah.
A lot of people at the Bhakti Center listen to the show. So if you want to reach out to us or get on live on Zoom, you can just reach out to us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. You know what? Veganism is such in the conversation now. I went to a great vegan restaurant called Organic Grill yesterday, right down the road from the Bhakti Center. It's like, it's in the conversation. It wasn't in the conversation when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s. No, if you're a vegan, a vegetarian, you're a weirdo. You're a freak. You had to go search out some peculiar underground restaurant for a bean burger. It was like very, very difficult. Like, the times, they are changing. It's amazing how it's even cared about and looked and discussed and thought about. Before, it was just like rejected. But like, what you consume is so incredibly important to what we become. And this is sort of like the whole theme, the underlying theme in the Bhakti tradition is, I'm going off here on another tangent before we start, about we are what we consume. And the whole concept of reincarnation, which is sort of a very lofty woo-woo idea, is actually very grounded in we become what we consume every moment. Not we become a parakeet in our next life. That's a different story about reincarnation. We become a prince. I was a pharaoh in my last life. People hear about reincarnation and think this is so far-fetched. It's so practical, reincarnation. You become somebody different moment to moment. Your thoughts become you in your next thought. The food you eat right now becomes you tomorrow, right? The people that you associate, the sounds that you hear, the books that you read, we're recreating ourselves moment to moment. This is reincarnation as described in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. And we're shaping our destiny by our choices. There's some karma you get. There's some astrological stuff we've been talking about. But there's actually some options we have for what we're going to be tomorrow by our day-to-day choices. And one of them is what we're doing right now, is we're here in the Bhagavatam, and it's creating a mind, it's creating desires, it's creating attractions, it's creating repulsions, it's bringing up stuff in me, literally from lifetimes, that I'm going to have to analyze and deal with. It's bringing up old resentments, old manifestations of my ego, and I have to notice it, and I have to deal with it today for tomorrow. It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah, the mind becomes what it consumes, right?
The mind becomes what it consumes.
So we got to be so conscious of what we consume. And therefore, number one at the most fundamental in the pyramid of, what do they call that thing when they have that pyramid of the different kind of food that you're supposed to eat?
The 4 food groups. No,
Yes.
the food pyramid.
The food pyramid.
4 food groups. Remember that one?
Yeah. So the number one ingredient in that pyramid, number one food, Bhagavatam. And holy name and Kirtan.
I was going to say grains and cereals.
Bhagavatam and Kirtan, these two. Hearing and chanting.
Hearing and chanting.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, they're called.
Do you remember when we were growing up, they had the 4 food groups?
Yeah. I just brought it up, didn't I?
No, but then they changed it. You know what I found out later? The 4 food groups was made up by the meat and dairy industry.
Yes, they're
it
still
wasn't
fighting
even
it.
scientific. It was made up by the meat and dairy industry. They were just selling us stuff.
You were cheated, Raghu. You were cheated. Tricked.
I was cheated. Conspiracy theory. They changed it to the pyramid on us without me even knowing. All right.
So we're on the first canto, 7th chapter, text number 11. Pick it up.
So we start with these invocations, these prayers to the Bhagavatam itself and the prayers to our teachers. Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Parayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs will be established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamurandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Nilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
All right. So we read the Atmarama verse yesterday about how Sukadeva Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, he was totally transcendental, yet still he was attracted to the Bhagavatam. I made
offense to the Bhagavatam because I called.
I never picked it up, but
no, you didn't pick that up when I said boring.
I missed
it. You didn't pick that up when I said Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmarama verse for like 20 pages or something.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I said when I was younger, I read that and I was like boring.
Okay.
But the problem is,
I remember that.
Sometimes when you're reading very heavy philosophy and you're a simpleton like myself and all you want to hear is, why did baby Krishna steal butter? Then sometimes when you get this heavy philosophy, it's like, I can't make it through the prayers of the personified Vedas. I'm going to just skip ahead to when Nanda Maharaj pulls into the
water,
pulled into the water for breaking fast on the wrong day. But yeah, sometimes these things are very heady and philosophical. But as we grow in our practice, even those things that you're not attracted to, maybe you're the opposite. That's another interesting point. Maybe you're the opposite, right? Maybe
all head, no heart.
Very deep and very philosophical and very scientific minded. And you're like, well, all these silly stories. And you start to realize actually these silly stories are incredibly very sweet, incredibly very charming. Right?
And also rich in wisdom and philosophy. Both.
They're also rich in wisdom and philosophy. Yeah.
Laden, you might say.
Laden with philosophy. Okay. Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus, he underwent the study of the great narration, the Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
So, by the way, once again, here's the Bhagavatam talking about the Bhagavatam. How can that even happen? And the idea is that the Bhagavatam is an eternal conversation. So it's not like it's started, like it's got a beginning and a middle and an end. Us even commenting on this is a continuation of the Bhagavatam. So the conversation of the soul, of other souls, of souls and teachers, this is an eternal conversation. It didn't start at one time. There was no one time this concept of yoga began. What is that yoga movie that was popular for a while?
Enlighten Up?
Enlighten Up. And it starts off where the interviewer goes around to famous yoga teachers and says, how old is yoga? And they're all like caught off guard, totally on the hot seat, like 500 years, 5,000 years, 400. And people don't understand, like, when did yoga begin? According to the Bhagavatam, the actual books of yoga, it's an eternal practice. There's for eternality, if you can imagine that, there's always been a demographic of souls that have wanted to reconnect with Source. There's always been that. And it's not everybody. But there's a demographic. And in a culture that's very spiritual, the demographic is bigger and bigger and bigger. But forever, there's been a soul that says, you know what? I'm not from this place. I want to connect with something higher. I don't want to find my pleasure out there. I want to find it in here. There's always been people like that. I want to wake up early at 5 a.m. and log into Zoom. There's always been a group of people that have been like that. So what's the history of yoga? It's forever. It's forever. So and there's always been inquisitive people, and there's always been people also on the path that answer those questions, and they have this dialogue. The Bhagavatam is an eternal conversation. So that's why, especially in the first canto, you hear the Bhagavatam spoken about in third person. Is that right? Third person?
Yeah. Yes, I guess.
Coach Stu was just being.
You're going to ask me a question about grammar?
Blah, blah, blah this morning. You're like, I already turned you off, Raghunath. I turned my volume off. Okay. Now it shall be.
Text 12.
Text 12. Sutta Goswami thus addressed the Rishi headed by Shaunaka. Now I shall begin the transcendental narration of Lord Sri Krishna and the topics of his birth, activities, and deliverance of King Parikshit, the sage amongst the kings, as well as topics of the renunciation of the worldly order by the sons of Pandu.
Yeah, because he was asked about this. If we go back a few chapters in the, I think it was in the 4th chapter, that the questions were placed there. How was Shukadev Goswami, Shaunaka was asking Sutta, how was he recognized by the citizens when he entered Hastinapur? And so we just heard a bit about Shukadev Goswami, and now we're hearing about King Parikshit. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage Shukadev Goswami, making it possible to hear the Bhagavatam? And why did he give up the kingdom and all of that? So by speaking now we're going to begin to hear the story about King Parikshit and how he was protected in the womb first, because someone was trying to kill the last heir of the Pandava dynasty, the grandson of Arjuna. So that story begins here.
I want to go to India. After reading this, it's like, I want to go back to India. Okay. When all the respective warriors of both camps, namely the Kauravas and the Pandavas, were killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the dead warriors obtained their deserved destinations, and when the son of Dhritarashtra fell down lamenting, his spine broken, being beaten by the club of Bhimasen, the son of Dronacharya, Aswatthama, beheaded the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi and delivered them as a prize to his master, foolishly thinking that they would be pleased. Duryodhana, however, disapproved of the heinous act, and he was not pleased in the least.
Good morning.
No clue what I'm talking about.
Good morning.
Like, what the hell? Like, where is the positive, uplifting morning show? The sleeping sons delivered the. What kind of gruesome tale is this? This is a little eyedropper out of the Mahabharata, which truthfully is the best story ever told. The Mahabharata, if you haven't read it, a great version is Krishna Dharma's Mahabharata, also available on Audible if you're like me and can't read books, and you can just listen to things when you're driving around or walking around. But it is the best story ever told, and the Mahabharata contains one thin chapter called the Bhagavad Gita.
Actually, it's not one chapter. It's 18 chapters.
It's not one?
Yeah.
No, it's not 18. No.
Bhagavad Gita?
The Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters.
Yeah.
But in Mahabharata, it's only one chapter.
Oh, maybe in some edition. They'll compress it that way.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you're dealing with the whole Mahabharata, yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the Mahabharata is huge. I had, when I was younger, a massive, to even read the entire Mahabharata.
Say 100,000 verses.
100,000 couplets. Unbelievable.
Couplets. Nice, couplets.
Yes, I speak in prose.
So should we give a little background here for this verse? Because I mean, I think it needs some
Yeah, because you're completely lost otherwise. Let's see. When the respective warriors from both camps came to the corners, the Pandavas were killed in the battlefield.
You know, the Mahabharata begins with Mother Earth, right? It's appropriate for the world that we live in now, right? The Earth was saying, the Earth is speaking to Lord Brahma, and saying, I just can't bear all these horrible rulers. They're just all these evil men. That the burden of carrying them is just too much for me. I need relief.
You ever feel like the Earth is going to say it again very soon?
I do. I think she's saying it.
Going on? Seems like it can't be worse than now.
I do think she's saying it.
We're fracking. We're mining. We're people are corrupt.
A lot of horrible leaders out there.
A lot of horrible leaders leading people way south, and we're getting the collective karma for just living in the country.
The Earth is crying, you know. The Earth is crying. So the Earth goes to Lord Brahma crying and saying, I just can't bear all these horrible leaders that there are, that there are all these demonic men, you know, just like, it's just unbearable. You know, there's this interesting saying, right? Do you ever hear that saying? What the one thing that the Earth can't bear, the one weight that the Earth can't bear?
Ingratitude?
No.
A liar?
A liar, right? A liar.
The Earth can't bear a liar.
Yeah. And all these leaders, they're lying like crazy, and all the lawyers are lying like crazy, and we all get infected, and we start to lie like crazy.
Tom's a lawyer.
Not all the lawyers.
Every lawyer except Tom.
Every lawyer except Tom is, you know, but and then we all get infected. And then it becomes natural to lie. It should be totally unnatural to tell a lie, right? Mm-hmm. And we get accustomed to just like operating that way. You know, humanity has become accustomed to so much dishonesty, so much inability to be self-critical. And the Earth is just, I can't take it anymore. Mm. So then, and this is, you know, this is connected to the idea of Kirtan too. Then Lord Brahma goes to talk to Lord Vishnu, who's lying on the ocean of milk, right? Maybe you should bring that one up on Joe Rogan. Who's lying on the ocean of milk?
Who's like, he's drinking soma on the moon. Yeah. He's lying on the ocean of milk.
But when Lord Brahma goes to speak to Lord Vishnu, he doesn't go alone.
Crazy things devotees say.
Right. But when Lord Brahma, on behalf of the earth, goes to speak to Lord Vishnu, he doesn't go alone. He brings all the other devas with him. And I believe it's Jiva Goswami in his commentaries explains that he goes with the group. Because when you go and approach with the larger group, it's more likely that your message will be heard. And so similarly, that's why Kirtan is so powerful. It's not just our own meditation, but we go together as a group. You know, we chant this together as a group. It becomes very powerful.
So continue. The group of demigods with the earth personified went approach Lord Brahma. And then Lord Brahma is sort of like, okay, I'll take care of this. I'm going to talk to Lord Vishnu. And he sits in meditation, and Lord Vishnu tells him through the heart. Isn't it interesting how he communicates? Lord Vishnu communicates with Brahma. He inspires him within the heart. And then he says, okay, this is what Lord Vishnu said. I'm coming. Tell them on the earth, I'm coming.
I'm coming.
I'm here in the Yadu dynasty with his family.
So the battle of Kurukshetra, which is the battle that follows the speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, was all about the plan to relieve the earth of all these horrible leaders. And pretty much all of them, the earth is relieved of pretty much all of them. Yeah. And
don't worry, we've created more.
Yeah. And so what happened was the person's being mentioned here, the son of Dronacharya, Ashvatthama, he was fighting on the side of the evil cousins. Mm. And Arjuna had to kill his father. Now, his father is Arjuna's guru. And it was so hard for Arjuna to do it. And as a matter of fact, he was so difficult to kill that it wasn't even exactly fair fighting that took place, you know? Yeah. Because he was just so unstoppable. Yeah. And that so infuriated Ashvatthama, his son, that he was just kind of in a blind rage. And so now that the leader of their army, Drona, who was the person responsible for this whole war, it mentions here now, he's lying on he's the one.
No, Duryodhana.
I'm sorry, Duryodhana. He's the one that caused all this. He's the one that said, bring Draupadi here now, you know, told her to sit on his lap, said strip her naked, had tried to kill the Pandavas, and so he was the cause of all this. Bhima had now carried out his vow of killing him. He's still alive, but he's about to die. And Ashvatthama, he's in such rage that he says, I'm going to kill all the heirs of the Pandava dynasty. So he goes and he kills all the sons of...
He does it by mistake. He thinks he's killing the Pandavas, but he's killing all their children because the Pandavas didn't stay in the camp then.
Yeah. But that's right. And then he says, I'm going to bring the heads of all of these, of the sons of the Pandavas, and offer them to Drona, so when he dies, at least he thinks I've killed the Pandavas.
Offers them to Duryodhana. Yeah.
But Duryodhana realizes that this isn't the heads of the Pandavas, this is their sons. And he's just...
Good morning.
Good morning. And
he, cheery good morning read for you today.
And even he who's so evil throughout even he recognizes this is just terrible what you've done. But he's out of control.
Yeah.
And then he's going to try to wipe out the one last heir who's not yet born, who's in the womb of Arjuna's daughter-in-law. And so that's what's going to play out now.
And then Draupadi's going to come and save the whole show. Or no, Kunti. They're going to kill Ashvatthama, and Kunti says, "Don't kill him."
No, Draupadi.
Oh, Draupadi. Yeah, don't kill him. This is a spoiler alert here.
Yeah, that's all coming. That's a fascinating conversation. So we'll be getting to that very soon.
Okay, it's
not today,
part because it really shows how Draupadi is the most connected here than anybody.
So compassionate, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that was a really sort of scary, dark, gruesome verse.
It stays gruesome for a bit here. There's some powerful vow taken by Arjuna.
Yeah. Draupadi, the mother of 5 children of the Pandavas, after hearing of the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress with eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjuna spoke to her thus.
Heart-wrenching stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine a mother. She's got for a wife, a queen, who's watching everyone in her kingdom just die, on both sides, and now her children have been inappropriately killed.
They had actually survived the battle. Some of the few people to survive it, and then for no reason, they're killed in such a terrible way.
Oh, gentle lady. And so now Arjuna, her husband, is saying to her, "Oh, gentle lady, when I present with you the head of that Brahmana, Ashvatthama, after beheading him with arrows from my bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then, after burning your sons' bodies, you can take your bath standing on his head." So he's spoken like a real warrior here. Arjuna's saying this.
To say the least.
To say the least, yeah.
So he just promised his wife, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to bring him back. I'll bring back his head. It's interesting that it's mentioned here that Ashvatthama is a Brahmana. That means like the teachers, right? Generally, they're not the ones fighting in the battles.
What was a unique thing? Because Drona was a Brahmana and he was a warrior.
Yeah.
Backstory. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, what he taught, that's what he taught was the martial arts, firing arrows and the mantras that are connected with that and all that. So he was a Brahmana, but he was a Brahmana that taught how to fight. So he was also involved in the fighting. And his son was similar.
Vivi's butting in here. What is she saying? Arjuna is so frustrating. He makes these vows and always backs down when it's time to take action. He didn't back down. Vivi, come on. He did. He grabbed. He was, oh man, I don't want to spoil it, Vivi, but now you're poking me with a stick. He didn't back down. It was Draupadi cried out of compassion. Don't kill him.
He was ready to do it.
After he had him and he was ready to kill him in front of Draupadi, Draupadi said, no. I don't want his mother to suffer like I'm suffering right now.
Well, tomorrow, probably tomorrow, the fascinating passage comes up where Arjuna brings back Ashvatthama bound, prepared to kill him, and then Draupadi saying, don't kill him, and Yudhishthira saying, don't kill him. and Krishna is saying, kill him. And Bhima is saying, kill him. And Arjuna has to satisfy his elder brothers, his wife, and Krishna, although they're telling him to do different things. And a fascinating passage comes up that deals a lot with the balance between mercy and justice, which is a constant thing in life that we have to consider.
It's a constant thing in life.
The careful balance between mercy and justice.
The careful careful tightrope walk between mercy and justice.
Yeah, so that's coming up.
Want to talk about that at all?
I think let's hold that because that'll be coming up soon. We won't get to it today for sure, but maybe that could be a theme for tomorrow or the next day whenever it does come up.
I want justice for everybody except me. I want you to be merciful with me. That's how it generally plays out.
It's a very difficult aspect of leadership. People do things wrong. There's got to be justice, but at the same time, justice can become cruel, and it could bring out cruelty in everyone. And people change, and people want to change, and there's a need for mercy. So how to balance that?
Do they really want to change, or are they just saying that?
And that's always difficult to determine. It's always difficult to determine.
So, okay, going on. Arjuna, who is guided by the infallible Lord as a friend and driver. Lord Krishna is the driver of Arjuna, which is in itself an incredible story. Lord Krishna, Bhagavan, the Lord of all the demigods, comes and plays a menial role to his pure devotee. And that itself tells the biggest story about bhakti, that Krishna or Bhagavan or divinity becomes the servant of the great devotee. It's actually quite unbelievable. Just the concept of Krishna driving the chariot. Like Krishna's here. Like we call each other Prabhu. Prabhu means master. But Krishna is seeing everybody, all the devotees, as, how can I serve you? What can I get you? What can I do for you? Krishna wants to be the ultimate servant of the devotee. It's actually a quite beautiful, charming relationship.
It's incredible, right? A famous name of Krishna is Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. When Krishna, the first time that Krishna appears in the Bhagavad Gita, he's driving Arjuna's chariot. This is the first time Krishna is going to appear in the Bhagavatam. What's he doing? He's driving Arjuna's chariot. He's being the servant of his devotee. And we read this commentary yesterday at the end of the show about the fear that people can have of like becoming the servant. Is it like you were saying, is that like being in prison? And Prabhupada was saying that impersonalists shudder at the thought of this personal relationship, that I'll become the servant of God. But we see God wants to become the servant. He wants to become the servant of his devotee. This divine source that we're all meant to connect to through service is so soft-hearted, is so kind, is so sweet that he wants to serve his devotees out of love. So somehow we have to let go of this fear. A lot of us have been kind of programmed with the fear of a personal God. That the big judge, who's going to condemn you to hell if you don't do exactly what he says, and it doesn't exactly make sense why you have to do exactly what he says. But this is a very different picture of divinity here, that God wants to become the servant. It said that the charioteer, how he's given directions by the warrior on the chariot. How he directs him, Raghu?
Please tell.
With his feet. If you got to turn right, you kind of take your right foot and kind of tap him with your foot. If you got to.
Oh, wow. So you got to put your feet on him.
Yeah. So, which is like in Indian culture is considered just like,
lowest thing you can do.
Yeah. Like a really improper thing to touch someone with your foot. You're meant to ask for forgiveness when you do that.
So Krishna is in this very lowly, almost humiliating position, serving his devotee. It's actually quite, there's this story, Parmanand encouraged me on the chat board, tell the story about the South Indian Brahmin. That's the one, I think he's talking about the one where he's reading the Bhagavad Gita upside down. Mm-hmm. He's illiterate. And the other Brahmins, the other priests were making fun of him. And Chaitanya saw him.
Because look, he can't even, he doesn't even know how to read. He's holding the book upside down. What a joke this guy is.
It's like, this is an idiot. He's trying to read a story.
He's not like us, so learned and
in that arrogance, seeing that arrogance, Lord Chaitanya approached him and said, he said, what? Well, why are you crying?
He's reading the Gita and he's crying. Right.
said, I'm crying because Krishna is so incredible that here he is, the Supreme Lord, and he's taking this lowly, humiliating position as the servant of Arjuna. Who would do such a thing in such a grand position? That's why, in Jagannath Puri, they have the big Rath Yatra festival, and the king comes out and he sweeps the street. Like, I am just a sweeper. Here I am, the king. You're treating me like a king. I'm just a street sweeper. So the South Indian Brahmin is crying, seeing, look at Krishna. He is the servant of the great devotees. So even if a person in a great position wants to be have a humble position, he's like, that is why I'm crying. And Chaitanya said, you are the real understander of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, not all these scholars.
Sometimes I think I'm scholarly. I'm really informed, and our education becomes another source of our ego. Our education becomes another source of our bondage.
It's devotion, not scholarship.
Yeah, scholarship is useful if it's used in devotion.
There
Otherwise,
you go.
it's a useless waste of time.
What a beautiful story.
Beautiful story. And it's time, my friends. If you've been listening to on the podcast, welcome to the show. And we do this every morning at 5 a.m. Eastern time. I'm traveling, so if you're listening to on Zoom, we'll send out a message on Telegram what time we are doing it tomorrow.
Be a little later.
At our Patreon account, we have a whole community we're creating now, and it's getting very exciting. Thanks to everybody who's part of it already.
Hey, Raghu, tonight on Patreon, we'll start it up. I'll do a Bhagavad Gita class on 13th chapter.
Nice. That's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Thanks for everybody who joined. You joined with your kids. You joined with your pets. You joined with your spouse. Let's do this every day. Jai Shri Krishna. Let's all lip sync to this song. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Radhe. It's the original karaoke of the heart. By the way, if you don't know this song, you got to go to Spotify or you got to buy the CD of the Mayapuris. They are my favorite of all these chanters. Oh my God. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe. You got neighbors? We're going to wake these neighbors up. Thanks for everybody joining later that I didn't say hello to. Krishna Radhaturn. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe.
Ananta Devi's got her sons there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All the kids.
There they are.
Come on, Tom, start clapping. Gonna wake my kids up back there. All right, we'll see you tomorrow in Tucson. Thanks everybody for joining us, and see you tomorrow. Haribol.